Election time is coming up in the 4 states, and along with several ballot questions, you're going to see questions for city council positions. We're on the record now with city council candidate Josh Detard. Thank you for being with us today, sir. First things first, why run for city council? I know it's not the pay.
Definitely not the pay, Jeremiah. $120 a year doesn't get you very far. Really running for council, I've always had civic. I've always been civic minded. I grew up in this area, Joplin, born and raised, fifth generation. Was always taught if the community takes care of you, it's your job to give back to the community. And really running for re-election because we've seen a lot of progress in the last 4 years. I've served on this term. It's been a great honor in the last 4 years to serve. But we've really made some good improvements or some headway into improving the community, whether it's quality of life or bringing in some economic development. And I want to continue to see those projects through, maybe even add some projects into the future.
Now, you mentioned the future and projects, one of the hot button topics right now, the proposed data center here in Joplin.
Yeah, so data center is obviously something that's underway. The studies are being done. Obviously it was a controversial issue. We had to do a lot of research, spend a lot of time earning that $120 a year. It's something I think that we've still got to make sure as city council people, even as city employees, that we're doing our best. It's a balancing act between growing the city and then protecting the citizens. And so bringing it into the city gives us some opportunity to add some of those protections and hold some accountability to the developer if it even comes to fruition. They've got 14 studies they've got to do, Jeremiah, before it even gets to the point of turning dirt. So we've got to make sure that they can get the power, make sure they can get the water, make sure they're going to take care of the community or the environment and not be a big noise or light pollution entity or building.
Another hot button topic in Joplin over the last year or two has been homelessness.
Yeah, homelessness is always something that's going to be ongoing. It's never going to be something that's going to go away. Homelessness is I've learned from being on council. When I first got on council, you know, there was no real, we had all the organizations, Jeremiah, that were doing their part, but they weren't really communicating with each other. And so one of the things I always strove to do was to come in, let's build a hub or a central intake to where these organizations can work with each other and know what's going on or what services this one provides and what services this one provides, so that if somebody unhoused comes in, they're going to get the services or the treatment that they need. And so that's another reason running is we've got that coalition up and going. We want to make sure that we're addressing like I said, homelessness is complex. It's not an easy fix. There's so many different parts of it. But we've got to make sure that we're handling it practically with practical solutions and compassionate solutions too. So that's a tough one, but it's never going to go away. We've always got to make sure that we're doing the best for everybody.
And I know we've talked a little bit about the future here, but I've got to ask you, setting those two issues aside, what else do you see in the future that you say, man, that is what I want to be a part of?
Really, I think in a very broad sense, Jeremiah, because there's never really one thing, right? When you're serving on city council, it's a multitude of issues that we've got to deal with, whether it looks like economic development, right? We want to make sure that we're growing our city and bringing in opportunities for our citizens. We want to make sure that we're taking care of homelessness. We want to make sure that the sports complex is a big one we're bringing in to generate tax revenue from people that are out of town, dollars that can be spent here for all the goals, whether that's the beautification of Joplin, whether that's dealing with the homelessness issue, dilapidated neighborhoods. We want to improve quality of life and public safety. So there's a multitude of things. It's not just one thing. I think you have to be able to come into this understanding that you don't know it all, but you got to be willing to learn a lot, and you've got to be able to make some of those tough decisions.
You and I were talking a moment ago. You were telling stories about when you first got on the council and that learning curve. It sounds like this is something that you're not only willing to do, but you're very interested in doing.
Oh, absolutely. I think I was talking about when I first got on, we were working on redoing the planning and zoning codes because they were outdated. I didn't know anything about planning and zoning, so I had to go get on Amazon and get a planning and zoning book for dummies, at least so I could go to these meetings and have some sort of understanding of what they're talking about and be able to ask questions on things that I didn't understand. Those are the things you have to be able to do is when you're not sure, you got to be able to ask the questions and then make those decisions based on the information that you get.
All right, Josh Detard, thank you so much for going on the record with us again. April 7th is the election date. We're on the record with Brian Cowles, a general council member whose name you'll also see on the ballot in Joplin this coming April. Sir, thank you for being with us. First thing I want to ask you, why run for council?
I love this city. Joplin has given myself a home, my son a home, and a future. During the COVID pandemic, I decided to go back to school, and I went to Missouri Southern State University, earned my degree in international and political affairs. During that time, I did an internship with the city manager's office under Nick Edwards, and I was able to see inside and outside of the city operations. I was able to see what is going well, and maybe some areas of improvement. During that time, we lost our officers, Corporal Ben Cooper and Officer Jake Reed, and that selfless act that they did for our city, it really inspired me to give back. And in doing so, I became really involved with the operations of the city. And this was a time for me to be able to throw my hat in the ring and do something that I never thought I would do.
Now, there's a couple of hot button topics that are being discussed quite a bit in Joplin. I want to start with the proposed data center on the west side of town. What are your thoughts as a candidate for council?
Well, coming into the new council, when I get elected, I'm glad that the current council made the decision to annex and rezone that property to give us some oversight and regulation. Moving forward, this is still a prospected data center. We have 17 studies that need to be completed before a data center would be allowed out there. So any industry that would be able to build out there, at least Joplin now has the ability to put some regulation and oversight into the build.
And one of those other hot button topics, homelessness in the city. What are your thoughts?
I think the city of Joplin and its residents need to realize that we have a mental illness and a drug addiction problem. We need to tackle each and every individual on a case-by-case basis. There are point-in-time counts. There are many nonprofits who are doing a wonderful job with the homeless population, but there's low rates of effectiveness. What we need to do is triage these people, figure out exactly what is keeping them homeless, and explore pathways with our partners, with the nonprofits, to streamline that process from somebody being homeless for 10 to 15 years and hopefully becoming independent individuals that live in our society.
So it sounds like what you're saying is this is a team effort is what it's going to take.
It's absolutely a team effort between the city government that relies on nonprofits to help with this this situation. It's going to take community members to step up, our churches to all roll up our sleeves and work with our regional homeless commission that has been developed by the city. I know that they're looking for a director still, but I would like to explore maybe some additional members to that commission that maybe has some personal experience with being homeless or drug addiction or even domestic abuse, because that is a problem too on the streets.
Now, we've talked about a couple of the bigger issues, but I know anybody who runs for office, there's something that maybe the rest of us wouldn't think of that you've seen and you've said, that's something I want to work on. What is that for you?
Youth engagement. We have a lot of wonderful institutions as far as our high schools, our higher learning institutions that are teaching a wide range of skills from medical to, political science and I mean all different kinds of things. What I would like to do is figure out a way to get the youth council fired back up to where there's youth councils within all the schools that work hand in hand with city council to become more engaged in civic affairs. I want to build, because I am a product of an internship from Missouri Southern State University in the collaboration with Joplin City, and it's changed my life. We need to have these kids, these young people that are going to school and earning these degrees and we need to have a city that they don't feel that they have to leave to succeed.
All right, Brian Cowles, candidate for general council seat in Joplin. Thank you for going on the record
Yes,
with us.
thank you for having me.
We're continuing our discussion with candidates that you'll see on the April 7th ballot for Joplin City Council positions. One of those, Mary Price, who's running for a general council seat. Mary, thanks for going on the record with us. First things first, talk to me about what led you to decide to run for council.
I started speaking when Republic Trash was going to lose their contract. I'd received some calls from citizens asking for my help. And I actually told them I don't do public speaking, but I ended up speaking on it, and I ended up fighting to keep Republic Trash. Well, then when Proposition Public Safety came about, I fought really hard because that tax was not earmarked for police and fire only. It was going to be at the discretion of City Council and the City Manager, but I felt like we needed a tax that was 100% dedicated to police and fire. And so when that didn't pass, I promised them that I wouldn't stop, and I would continue to work on getting something set up for them, because our first responders deserve to be taken care of. They're the first ones in any tragedy, and I believe that we need to take care of them. So I decided, after 4 years of speaking and met with silence and none of my questions answered at city council meetings, I decided to run. So here I am.
Now, if elected, there's a couple of hot button topics that are being discussed in the city of Joplin. I want to take a look at both of those. Let's start with the proposed data center. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not sure if the citizens of Joplin realize there is already a Bitcoin crypto data center out there. There is more land available for them to use, and we don't know how big they're going to be. Right now there's 8 trailers. What if they wanted to put 100 trailers on there? And there's a proposed data center. It's not there yet, and I've taken a lot of heat over that on my campaign. But the city council members, the current city council members, are the ones that voted to annex the property and to change the zoning. I can't change that if I'm elected, but if I'm elected, I can make sure that checks and balances are in order before anything goes out there, to make sure the citizens are protected and our community is protected.
And one of those other hot button topics that I wanted to ask you about, homelessness, that has been at the forefront of discussion for a couple of years here in Joplin. What are your thoughts?
Homeless has been on the forefront for the last 6 years, and I don't think it's going to go away unless we have some changes. And my thoughts are, a camping ordinance is not going to change the homeless issue. We need to first figure out who's bringing the homeless in. I personally watched 17 homeless people get off a Greyhound bus just a couple weeks ago. So if we can figure that out, and then maybe if we look at how we're handling all of it, maybe the city council members aren't the ones that should be dealing with it. Excuse me. Maybe we need to have the chamber handle the position and let them do the work. We have over 40 nonprofits. If you have 40 nonprofits running in the city of Joplin, let's say it costs each of them $4,000 a month to keep their door open. That's $160,000 a month. That's not helping the homeless. That's just keeping nonprofits open. Maybe if we pooled the nonprofits, how many tiny homes could 140,000 house? Maybe pool the resources. Maybe let's look at other ways that we can help. But first, take care of our own.
Now, we've got just about a minute left or so, and I've been asking everybody. I know these are two hot button topics, but I also know nobody runs for a position like this without something that you look at and you say, man, I am passionate about that. That is something I want to be involved in. What is that for you?
The police and fire, taking care of our first responders. That was my number one that I really wanted to see happen, and I want our city to be transparent and fiscally accountable with our tax dollars.
All right, ma'am. Well, again, thank you so much for going on the record with us. Mary Price, again, will be a candidate for a general council seat in Joplin on the April 7th ballot. We're continuing our discussion with candidates for Joplin's general city council seats on the April 7th ballot. On the record with us now, Natasha Kluh-Michael, one of those candidates. First of all, thank you for joining us today. First questions first, why run for city council?
When I look at the current council, I don't see anyone who represents me. And when I see some of the decisions that have been made recently, I don't feel like a few of the current council members are listening to constituents. And so I want to make sure that everyone's voice is amplified. And I feel like talking to people and listening to people, being an active listener, is going to help me be the perfect person for that job.
You kind of touched on it right there, but I know there are two in particular hot button issues that have been before council in recent months. I want to take a look at both of those and get your thoughts on them. Let's start off with the data center. What are your thoughts on that proposed data center?
I definitely am not in favor of any proposed data center. I was able to vote no on the rezoning and the annexation of the Wildwood Ranch where the proposed data center is going to.
And that's because you're on the Planning and Zoning Board currently.
Yes. As a commissioner, I was able to vote no on that. And so I actually addressed council in the January and the February meeting, urging them to table the matter. And I also circulated petitions for the referendum and the moratorium. I'm still collecting those moratorium petitions as well. So I am not in favor of any data center. I don't believe that it would bring jobs to Joplin, and I believe that it would pollute our air. And I do believe that with my research, I found out that it would use an estimated 2 to 5 million gallons of water per day. 5 million gallons of water per day is what the entirety of the 53,000 citizens of Joplin use. So definitely not in favor of that.
And the second of those kind of bigger items that has been before council, homelessness, which I know is a very broad topic, but in general terms, what are your thoughts?
I don't believe that the council's doing a very good job right now, especially enforcing the camping ordinance. I just saw this morning or yesterday where there was another gentleman who was fined $250 for camping because he had all his belongings in his backpack. So I don't believe ticketing an under-resourced community is going to be able to help them out. So I believe that if we could implement affordable housing in some of the vacant lots that we have, we would be able to address that issue with that, as well as work together with the existing organizations like the Economic Security, the Homeless Coalition, and a few of those other organizations. If we could get them all to come together, I think that we would be able to tackle the issue.
So it sounds like what you're saying is a team approach to the
Absolutely. And I think that a local team approach, in the past the city had spent quite a few, almost $100,000 doing a study on homelessness with some consultants out of Florida. If we would have consulted people here locally, like Economic Security and the organizations who are dealing with the individuals locally, I think that we could have taken that $90,000, put the resources locally, and we could have been on our way with some of that affordable housing.
Now, I've been asking all the candidates, and I'll ask you, I know we just talked about two big ticket items, but I don't think anybody runs for council without something that they look at and they say, wow, that's something I'm really excited to get in on. And it may not be something any of us think of. What is that thing for you?
I think just making sure that people feel like they have a council person who listens to them. That's the biggest thing that I hear of right now. And so I think it will be a steep learning curve once I get on council, but I'm very excited to learn the ins and the outs. And something that I'm excited for is all of the jobs that Crossroads North will bring in. I was able to vote yes as a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Board for that annexation because that's going to bring in hundreds of jobs. So I'm excited to see that play out, and then as well as just make sure that I can amplify the voice of the people of Joplin.
All right, again, Natasha Kluh-Michael, one of the candidates for the 3 general council seats up for election on April 7th. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us, and thank you for going on the record. We're continuing our discussion with candidates for Joplin City Council. We're on the record with Matthew Woolsey, who is one of the candidates for the general council seat. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. First things first, why run for city council?
Well, it all started December of last year. We were all sitting around. We were at just a get together, me and a group of friends, and somebody who was running campaigns for other people said we still needed more people to run. And I'm politically active already, and I figured it would be a good suit for me.
So I know there are a couple of hot button topics before
Absolutely.
the council right now. Let's dive into both of those. I want to start with the data center. What are your thoughts on that proposed facility?
I don't like it. In fact, I dare say I hate it. My main issue with it is, of course, the ecological impact, but as well as the fact that it's not going to bring much to Joplin, especially since it's pretty clear that the AI craze is a bubble and it's going to pop like an ugly zit at some point, and I don't want Joplin dragged under with it.
The second one of those hot button topics, we were talking beforehand, homelessness in the city. What are your thoughts there?
A lot of my political activity has been with this group called Hopeful Bites. You might know them as the people who stand outside of City Hall and annoy them. But our main goal is to provide a service that this city is lacking, which was food for the homeless. And through that experience, I've gotten, I would say, a unique insight on the experience of the less fortunate in this city. And there aren't enough resources here, and I believe that we can 100% do more and do better by these people and give them the opportunity to better their lives.
A follow-up to that. So your time with Hopeful Bites, interacting with these folks, do you feel like that enables you to provide a voice for them on council if elected?
It's hard to say that I could be their voice. I have never been homeless myself. I haven't been through that struggle like they have, but I can certainly listen to them and help them in whatever way I feel I can.
And I told you I had one last question that I've asked everybody. I know we talked about a couple of the big hot button topics, but everybody's got that passion project. Nobody runs for council without something that they look at and they go, man, I can't wait to work on that. What is that for you?
For me, I think it would be the separation of funding for fire, police, EMS, and dispatch. I believe that they're different entities that have different goals. While all of it relates back to public safety, our firefighters aren't paid enough. They're not manned enough. They're having to work overtime. They're overworked. And these are the people that go in and save my life and your life whenever our houses catch on fire because they're made of wood, you know? So without properly funding these people, we're not going to feel safe in this city. And whenever we do this bulk funding of every single emergency service, we're not able to see where exactly we can focus our funds because they're getting spread out so much. So instead, we should have 3 or 4 separate funds for fire, dispatch, EMS, and police, and we could more aptly serve our community that way.
All right, Matthew Woolsey, candidate for Joplin City General City Council seat on the April 7th ballot. Thank you for going on the record with us.
Thank you.
We're continuing our discussion with the candidates for the 3 general city council seats in Joplin. Joining us now, Jamie Hammond. Jamie, thank you for going on the record with us. First things first, why run for city council?
So I've been watching city council for years since I've moved here, and so for me it was I was seeing people show up and tell city council data and facts, and it just didn't seem like they were being heard. And then kind of the data center situation happened, and I realized that there wasn't a lot of representation up there that represented working class people like me and the people I know. And so I decided that I wanted to be a civil servant and I wanted to represent the people. So I ran.
You mentioned the data center. I told you before the interview we had a couple of hot button topics that we talked about with each of the candidates. One of those is the data center. What are your thoughts on that?
So I didn't know much about AI before this all occurred. You know, it's fairly new and there's not a lot of like information out about it. So I just listened to people, what they were finding, what they were researching, their facts, their data, and I found that it really depleted water sources, polluted, sound pollution, drove up electrical prices, and with Joplin like being in a drought and our electrical prices going up like almost every year, I didn't really think that was something that the people could or should have to, you know, just that just shouldn't be something that the people have to deal with. Like, we're already dealing with so much, and just the rising costs of everything that just it wasn't fitting for Joplin. So I've been against it since I understood like what it was going to do to our city.
One of those other hot button topics, homelessness in the city of Joplin. Do you have thoughts on that issue?
So I've been doing houseless work for the past 5 years. I co-founded Food Not Bombs. We're a mutual aid that helps redistribute resources that people don't use to the houseless community. So I really understand the houseless issue. It's very multifaceted. There's not like one solution, but I think that I don't think that the city council should solve homelessness, but I do think that they should be the support to bring all the nonprofits and the groups together so that we can all sit at one table. There seems to be a lot of disagreements which path is the correct path to take, but we do have organizations within Joplin that are having success rates. I just got to go to a graduation and watch people that I had seen on the streets for like 5 years graduate, and they're moving to Wisconsin to go into ministry, and we just cried because, you know, they're leaving. But you know, I'm so happy to see them go. Like, sometimes we just have to love people through their situation, like aid them into the job force, and just love them until they're ready to take flight.
And I promised you, I was going to ask you, I know nobody runs for office on, not solely on the big items. There's always something that a person looks at and they say, man, I'm passionate about that. And it may be something that's not on our radars. What is that for you?
So for me, I'm just passionate about people. Like, I just want people to be happy and collaborate and live inside community and be there for one another. But for me, it was houselessness. I've been involved in those services for 5 years. So, and I'm seeing a lot of arrests and a lot of things that are kind of hindering the work that we're doing. So I would like to work with the city and figure out a solution, a humane solution for these people. They are our neighbors. Just because they don't live in a house doesn't mean they aren't our neighbors. They're living inside of our city, and if our city is for the citizens, it's for all the citizens, not just the ones with homes.
All right, Jamie Hammond, one of the 6 candidates for the general council seats on the April 7th ballot. Thank you for going on the record with us.
Thank you for having me.